Okay, so with this honeysuckle, I didn't really actually have to dig very deep to kind of uncover some of this root base. Yeah, again, I was drawn to this interesting, the bark here and the trunk being the way that it is, and then realizing like it also flares out here with these roots, which these roots aren't super thick.
Right.
So they're also probably optional as the...
Yeah.
Right?
So with deciduous trees, what we tend to have is we have a lot more flexibility to be able to reduce the root mass. They tend to produce a lot more roots, and we can develop these roots if we want. But notice below this kind of spindly upper root here, you have a thicker root below it. This is very common in deciduous root bases where roots will stack on top of each other, and we can actually continue to reduce to find the most solid, best possible flare in the base. But as we look at this, I think you've chosen a really beautiful base here where we've got a significant amount of flare. And the backside here too also has it. However, this is really where we've got to be discerning, because if both this side have this width and this side have this width, we now start to talk about what are the quality of the roots and the base in between that flare. Notice how we kind of lack roots in this area. We almost have like a hole. Whereas on this side, we've got a lot more distribution of nice root mass and a really three-dimensional base. It covers the foreground here, and then we even get a little bit of background. That's a quality base. Beyond that idea of width, that idea of stability, that's a really important piece of the puzzle, particularly for a deciduous tree. So then in terms of the lines that you saw as being of value in this tree, where are we thinking?
Yeah, so yeah, that was the base, and then the lines that I find interesting. This branch here, considering this to be the front, has a cool kind of movement to it. And there's a few different options, I feel like, and I just kind of acknowledge that there's this guy, and I love this. It's one of the reasons I wanted this tree was because of this branch, and I'm now trying to figure out if that's even justified, if that makes sense as it goes, because that was part of kind of the nostalgia factor, was this branch kind of calling for me to jump on it and start climbing it.
Right.
You had mentioned that not having the trunk be just upright is what you're going for, but I can't help but see that tree that way. So it's a little,
Yeah, and so there's a little bit of a different nuance here though, because when you're looking at it from here, you notice that both of these lines flare out. So verticality is it's a very exact thing. When you have a vertical line, which this flare here eliminates that, and a lot of times in deciduous, we do have more of an upright trunk, but it's the movement of both sides coming in at those different angles. If one side of this was definitively vertical and flat, that's when we would look to change it. So I don't think that you need to be changing the angle to adjust for that. Now, one thing I would caution you against in all bonsai is to fall too in love with one piece of the tree. This branch, I know you love this branch. This branch also may not be the best option for the design of the tree. So we distance ourselves from those feelings of affection to a degree to try and make the best bonsai, and if we can incorporate them, we will. There's a chance that we cannot, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Back to this base and having kind of this secondary trunk or whatever.
Right, you've got a double trunk style.
Yeah, I see the center being here, where they kind of meet.
Right.
And this is almost kind of in the back.
That's perfect.
Right.
That's
perfect. It's coming out from the back.
Just the same as we want dimension in the root base. Whenever we have multiple trunks, we never want them to line up in a two-dimensional plane. So we're always going to shift one to slightly the back so we get that depth achieved. Yeah, so this is beautiful. I love this front. I think you've got great lines. I think you've got the best base that you possibly can, and there's a lot of features inside of, whether we do use this, some of the movement that we have up through here, and obviously the bark section of this front becomes a very major feature to focus on. So you've got 3 trees that are selected, cleaned, and now we've chosen the front. This really takes us to that point where we know what angle they're gonna be at, we know what we have to work with, and we can see everything in its totality. It's time to really dig into the design and selecting what branches are we gonna use to stylistically make the best form.